something came up recently that kind of shone a light back on some, well, pretty old tensions in hip-hop.
Yeah.
We're talking about the reactions after Irv Gotti passed away back in February.
Irv Gotti, yeah, huge figure. Founder of Murder, Inc., obviously.
Exactly. And his death, it led to a lot of talk, a lot of reflection across the industry. But, you know, not everyone reacted the same way. And that's where it got, well, interesting.
Totally. Because while you had lots of people talking about his legacy, his contributions, 50 Cent's response just, it really stood out. Completely different tone.
Right. And kind of predictably, that didn't sit right with Ja Rule.
Nope.
Pulled their whole, long history right back into the spotlight, at least for a bit.
Exactly. So we're going to unpack that today. Look at these different reactions, the history behind it all.
Right. We're drawing mainly from a Hip Hop DX report here, where Ja Rule talked about 50's comments. This was on The Breakfast Club.
Good source for this kind of stuff.
Definitely. So the plan is to really get into the details. What sparked these specific comments? What's the backstory that's still kind of simmering? And what does it tell us when you see these totally opposite ways of reacting?
Okay, yeah. Let's dive in. Where do you want to start? 50 Cent's reaction seems like the catalyst, right?
Yeah, let's start there.
Yeah.
Because that really kicked things off.
Okay, so the news about Irv Gotti breaks. And 50 Cent, he goes onto social media, and the posts were, let's just say provocative.
Understatement, maybe.
Maybe, yeah. He puts up this picture. He's got a hookah pipe, right? And it's next to what looks like some kind of mock gravestone.
Wow.
And the caption was pretty direct. I'm smoking on that Gotti pack. Nah, God bless him, LOL.
Oof, that LOL at the end. It just adds this whole other layer, doesn't it?
It really does. You can read that a few ways, none of them particularly respectful in that context.
And that wasn't the only thing, right? Wasn't there another comment just before Gotti passed about a stroke?
Yeah, exactly. The day before reports came out, Gotti had another stroke. And 50 commented on Instagram then, too. Something like, damn, I wanted him to see my new shows, yo.
Right. So you put those two together, especially when everyone else is, offering condolences, talking respect.
Yeah, it paints a picture. It doesn't exactly look like mourning. Some people definitely saw it as, well, almost glee.
Glee, yeah. That's a word for it.
Yeah.
The contrast was just really stark.
Absolutely. You've got the general mood of remembering Gotti's impact, the culture he built, and then these posts. Almost felt like 50 was, I don't know, celebrating this old feud.
So how did Ja Rule take this? Initially, anyway. Because knowing their history, you might expect fireworks immediately.
Well, yeah, you might. But interestingly, his first public response wasn't this huge blow-up.
No. What did he say?
He was on The Breakfast Club, right?
Right.
Which, they don't shy away from tough conversations there.
Right.
And he called 50 Cent a troll. So he usually just tries to stay clear of that shit.
Okay, so acknowledging the dynamic but trying to rise above.
Sort of. He even used this analogy like, I'll go to the circus once in a while, but I really like to stay clear of that shit. So clearly aware, but prefers not to engage, usually.
Usually. But this time felt different.
That's the interesting part. He admitted that 50's comments about Gotti did get to him. Big time. He said, quote, I was hot, I was ready to go nuclear and shit. Repeated it too. I was hurt, I was ready to go nuclear.
Wow, so even though he tries to stay clear, this one really pushed his buttons.
Definitely. So you see that internal conflict, right? That urge to just go off, publicly fire back.
Yeah, you can imagine that feeling.
Yeah.
But he didn't, ultimately. He held back.
He held back, and it seems like some advice he got played a pretty big part in that.
Ooh, who from?
DJ Premier, Ja Rule talked about speaking with Premier.
Okay, legendary producer. Makes sense he'd seek counsel there.
Yeah.
What did Premier say?
Premier apparently told him, Rule, you got to understand who we are and what we are. We are masters of self-defense.
Masters of self-defense. Interesting framing.
Yeah, and he went on, I don't want to start trouble, make trouble with people, but if we got to get into it, make it, I'll fucking end it.
Whoa, okay. That second part carries some weight.
For sure. It's not just about responding, it's about control, power, knowing you can respond decisively, but choosing when or if.
So it's like, don't react impulsively.
Yeah.
Be strategic, maintain control, don't get dragged down.
Exactly. Premier's advice seems to have given Ja Rule a way to handle it without, stooping to what he probably saw as 50's level, choosing the battle, basically.
And Ja Rule seemed to take that to heart.
It sounds like it. He kind of summed up his reasoning for holding back by talking about core values.
Like what?
He said, you protect your family, your home, your honor, your name, your reputation. That's who we are as men.
Okay, so for him, restraint was the way to protect his honor and reputation in this case. Firing back might have actually undermined those things.
That seems to be the perspective, yeah. A public back and forth might damage the very things he values. It's a different way of looking at strength, maybe.
Interesting. Now, there was someone else who weighed in pretty strongly, right? Supreme McGriff Jr.
Ah, yeah. That adds another whole dimension.
Can you give us the quick background? Who is he? What's his connection?
Sure. Supreme McGriff Jr. is the son of Kenneth Supreme McGriff Sr.
Okay, the name Supreme McGriff definitely rings bells in New York history connected to organized crime, drug trade.
Right. A major figure in Queens back in the day. Convicted drug lord. And crucially, he had ties to Murder Inc.
Ties to Murder Inc., okay. And also, wasn't there a connection to 50 Cent's shooting?
That's the widely believed link, yeah. That McGriff Sr. was involved in the incident where 50 Cent was shot multiple times.
Right. So, yeah. That's some heavy history between those circles.
Definitely complex. Definitely volatile.
So, with that context, what did McGriff Jr. have to say about 50 Cent's post about Gotti?
He was not happy. Very critical. Didn't mince words at all.
How'd he put it?
He used this really blunt analogy trying to show the level of disrespect he felt. He basically said, referencing 50's own family. Yeah. He said, and this is a direct quote, "If I said I was smoking on your mother and your grandfather pack, niggas would be telling me I'm wrong, right? If I said I was smoking on your mother, I'd be wrong, right?"
Wow. Yeah, that's stark. Leaves no room for interpretation.
Not at all. It really drives home how deeply offensive 50's actions were perceived by some people close to Gotti and that whole circle.
He's essentially saying, how would you like it?
Yeah.
Using the most sensitive comparison possible to highlight the perceived disrespect towards the dead.
Exactly. It shows that for some, this wasn't just old beef resurfacing. It was seen as crossing a serious line, a fundamental lack of respect.
Which, brings us back to that history. We should probably just briefly touch on it. This isn't new, this tension between Jai and 50.
Oh, not at all. This goes way back, early 2000s, really. Their time coming up in the industry.
Yeah, there's been diss tracks, confrontations, all sorts of stuff over the years. It's a deep-seated thing.
Definitely. We don't need to rehash every single incident today, but it's crucial context. You have to understand, this isn't just a reaction out of nowhere. There's like 2 decades of bad blood fueling this.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's try and pull these threads together. We've got Irv Gotti's passing, then 50 Cent's reaction post that many saw as disrespectful, even gleeful.
Right. Very provocative.
Then Ja Rule's response. Initially feeling that anger, wanting to go nuclear, but ultimately choosing restraint.
Yeah, influenced by that advice from DJ Premier about self-defense, control, protecting your reputation.
And then you have figures like Supreme McGriff Jr. jumping in, expressing outrage from a different perspective, highlighting that perceived deep disrespect.
Exactly. It really paints a picture of how grief, really old rivalries, and ideas about respect all collide, especially when it plays out so publicly like in hip-hop.
Ja Rule's choice, though, not engaging directly this time, it offers a really interesting perspective on managing conflict, right?
Yeah.
Especially when things are already so sensitive.
It does. It makes you think about how people handle loss and how these old beefs they don't seem to fade easily.
Especially in the public eye where every little comment gets magnified, analyzed.
Totally. So, what does this whole episode reveal? About respect, about reputation, how you navigate conflict when millions are potentially watching.
Yeah, and it leads to a bigger question, doesn't it? Beyond just this specific situation.
Like what?
Well, how much do our personal histories, these really deep conflicts we have, shape how we react to major life events? Even events involving people we consider enemies.
That's a good one. Is there a statute of limitations on beef? Does death change anything, or does it just persist?
Right. Does it persist beyond the people involved sometimes, even?
Yeah. No easy answers there. Definitely something to chew on.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for diving into this one with me. It's always fascinating to peel back the layers on these kinds of situations.
Yeah, likewise. Good talk.
Until the next deep dive.